Well, hello, and welcome to the Sacred Pathway Academy podcast with me, Allison Rozelle. I am the hostess of this here platform, this here podcast, but I'm also the founder, CEO, and head mistress of the Sacred Pathway Academy, where you can enroll and learn various modalities. One in particular is Reiki. We're not going to talk about that today. Oh no, because I have a very special guest with me. And for those that's been following me for a while and you've tuned into my podcast, you've seen her, you know her. But if you haven't, then let me introduce her. It is my friend, my sister, Mignon Grayson. Hi, sis.
Hi, it's so good to be here with you.
Hey.
Yeah.
Yes. So me and Mignon, oh my goodness, it feels like we go way back, like we've been knowing each other forever. But I think it's just because we're just very kindred spirits. And it's like she's the water and I'm the fire, and we need each other. Because she's got that Cancer energy and I got that Leo energy, and we just balance each other out really well. So
Right.
yay. So let me just read a little bit about Goddess Mignon, because I'm just going to take the liberty of reciting what I already know about you based on previous conversations. So Reverend Mignon Grayson is the founder of Sacred Mysteries Worldwide, and she is an ordained minister of One Spirit Interfaith Seminary in New York City. She was ordained in 2016. She chose the interfaith path due to her calling to serve people of all faiths and religious practices. Mignon recognizes that there is a common link to the divine creator within all religious traditions. Mignon heard the call of spirit at an early age. She began to explore the different spiritual practices of Africa, Indigenous North America, and East Indian cultures. Her curiosity of the divine in its various expressions led her to study ancient Egyptian, or Kemet, religion as her first introduction to African spiritual tradition. Later, Mignon was drawn to other African religions, where she became a devotee of the Ifa tradition of Nigeria and initiated as I always get tripped up on this word, Yayi, priestess of Palo Mayombe.
Perfect.
Yay, I did it, which is rooted in the African Congo Bantu tradition. Through her many years of being a devotee of the Ifa tradition and her initiation to Palo Mayombe, Mignon has learned the deep importance of the ancestors, which we're going to talk about today, and their connection to our daily life and our spiritual evolution. This is a theme throughout most ancient cultures. Mignon's particular focus is to bring the wisdom of ancient spiritual traditions from across the world to the masses through Sacred Mysteries Worldwide, and to honor the divine feminine through her work with women and girls in discovering and unleashing their divine power. So I am just so excited. Cannot wait for us to have this conversation, because I know, Mignon, this is something that you love to talk about. You even wrote a book about it. She did. So let's go ahead and just jump into this conversation. What is it about Ancestor Reverence that you feel is so important?
Ancestor Reverence is an actual very important piece of the puzzle of life, or the cycle of life. We are our ancestors returned. If you know about reincarnation, we have been here before and we are reborn again, and we are ancestors to others when we're not here and waiting for our cycle to come back, because we have divine assignments, and those assignments are completed when we come to earth, and sometimes they're not, and we come back to complete them, or we have new ones. So ancestor reverence is so important that you understand that you are revering the divine in all its many expressions as all of your bloodline that has come before you, and as well as your own spiritual essence, because you are your ancestors returned as well. And while we're living on earth, those that are no longer in their spiritual body, because really what it is that, we are spirits in a physical body. The body is inhabiting this particular plane. There are many different spiritual planes, but we are spirits inhabiting this physical body.
Right.
But that's just a portion of who we are. We are this divine being that has that also exists on all the planes at the same time. But this is our main focus right now. But we have ancestors who they love us. They were here. They know what life is about. So when they're not in their bodies, they actually have better ability to help us than if they were in their physical bodies, because they don't have the limitation of the physical realm. So they can go and go forward and backward and sideways and do what they need to do for you, to help you, because they want to see their line, their descendants do well, because if they do well, then whoever they come in contact with does well. So it's an interconnectedness about ancestor reverence that is not just for you, the person, but it's for you, the family member, for your family members, for your community, and for your country, and for the world. It just branches out because we're all connected. So the importance of ancestor reverence is having that support on the spiritual level to help you achieve and gain happiness in life and achieve your destiny. So that's it in a nutshell.
Yes, and it's so many questions that I know I've had, and I know that other people tend to ask when it comes to ancestor reverence, or just knowing about your ancestors, period, right? Mm-hmm. So when you think about the ancestors, let's talk about it from the perspective of people from the African diaspora. Can you explain a little bit about the importance of ancestor reverence in our traditional senses as far as people from the African diaspora?
Yes, in terms of the African diaspora, connecting our existence, our beingness to our ancestry is very important because of our traumatic experience in this particular land. Being able to trace back beyond that in a spiritual sense, because we don't know the particulars, is very important to completing who we are, knowing of who we are on this planet, that we are more than just that traumatic experience. Also, in ancestor reverence, there's a lot of incomplete things, a lot of things that we may have inherited, both good and not so good, that we are allowed a chance to celebrate, which helps to strengthen us, and to heal, which helps to strengthen us. So it's a win-win when it comes to us here in the African diaspora, because we have been disconnected rather, from our history in such a big way. And our history is so huge, so diverse, and so ancient. So we have a lot that we can tap into beyond, as well as the recent experiences, several hundred years, but beyond that, thousands and thousands of years. We have that wisdom, that connection, that energy at our disposal as well. Because here in this land, having experienced in the United States, or in the diaspora in particular, the trauma and the minimalization and the dehumanization that our ancestors experienced, we are coming out of that and now starting to heal that in a huge way. And ancestor reverence is one of the ways in which we can gain a footing that we can gain strength, that we can understand who we are on a more holistic level, and not this little narrow box that we've been
Right.
placed in this particular environment here. Because we were raised that, you know, we were this or we were that, and that we're only this. So embracing the wholeness of who you are as an African descendant is extremely important, because we all know everything that was significant in world history came out from Africa, came from African genius. So being able to connect to that is so important for us understanding the fullness of who we are.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I think for many of us who start on our spiritual path, especially if we were raised in some of the more Western religious traditions,
Yes.
some of us start to feel kind of a stirring inside of us that, you know, something is missing. Something, you know, it's like, I'm kind of getting something, but I'm not really sure what it is. And what I'm learning is most of the time, and for me personally, it's been the fact that my ancestors have been calling out to me to basically come home, in a sense, meaning coming home to myself as a woman of the African diaspora. So I guess my next question would be, you know, when someone is transitioning from those Western traditionally practiced religions like Christianity, or even, you know, Judaism or Islam, if they're transitioning from those religions into spirituality and they want to start to connect and make those connections with their ancestors, what do you suggest they do to get started?
Well, I'm so glad that you brought that up in terms of the stirrings and the calling of the ancestors. I am truly have bear witness to how much our ancestors are actually encouraging us to check out
Yeah.
to other traditions, our ancestral traditions. So many people are interested in knowing more. And I definitely attribute to that to the ancestors who are always around us, encouraging us, and definitely calling us back home so that we can connect with our power base of spirituality, and something that is really in harmony with our soul and with our spirits, because you know we're feeling kind of out of sorts here and we're not
Yeah.
connected. You know, it's like, you know, getting half power, half, you know,
Right.
currency, half frequency.
Yes.
And that's how you're, you know, you're powering yourself throughout life without the full force of what you have available to you. And getting connected or getting started with ancestral reverence um, is a desire first, of course, that's always there first. But the most simplest thing you can do is to try, if you have information about your ancestors, um, know their names, know their names, and begin to record the names of your ancestors. And the purpose of this is because you're going to start your ancestor reverence practices. Now, some people like to start with an altar, some, you know, and I'll go over what that is if we have time.
Yes,
But,
definitely.
you know, just to start with knowing who they are. If you don't know who they are, then by name, they know who you are. So you just need to call them by the ancestors of my mother's line and ancestors of my father's line. And then it can be as simple as lighting a candle once a week with a fresh glass of water, because in African traditions, it's all about the freshness and about water and the power and the essence of water. So light a candle, white candle, glass of water, and sit and say your favorite prayer, and then call their names and thank them for your life, thank them for all of your blessings, thank them in, you know, whatever comes to your heart. And you know, they're in their different ancestor prayers too, that you could get connected with if you want. But that's the base. All you need, a candle and some the names of your ancestors. It doesn't have to be complicated at all, and they will. It what this is an energy exchange. When you start to acknowledge them, it's just like, for instance, if you were sitting in a room and somebody kept walking back and forth and not acknowledging you, how much energy would you give them?
Right.
It's just that simple. It's like, so, but once somebody starts to engage you, you start to engage them, and it's a back and forth. So it's the same thing with ancestor reverence. The more that you engage them and acknowledge them, the more power and more connection that you have. And so it's a give and a take. So, and that connects them more because remember, they're not on the physical plane. You are. The physical plane is extremely dense, and that denseness, it takes a little bit to get through. So your acknowledging them helps to build that energy connection stronger, so they have the ability to be that stronger whisper in your ear, or intervene on your behalf on this side, in the physical realm. So just simple calling of their names, a prayer. If if Christianity is your base, you could say a prayer from the Bible first. 23rd Psalm is a favorite of our ancestors that are near, that are more recent, and then recite their names and just say thank you. And then sit and listen and be still, because you'd be surprised the types of things that will come to mind. And then you, a lot of times it's suggestions or it's flashes of things, and you can take notes about that if you have your book ready and journal about it and see what kinds of answers or clues or direction that you begin to get.
Yeah. And I love that you said that about having your journal near you, because what I often am finding is, sometimes it's not, the answers are not going to come right away. It's not. And then it's not going to necessarily come in the way that you're expecting it to either. It's like people think that it's going to be like this clear voice, which sometimes it might be. Sometimes it might be. But a lot of times it's not. It's in a feeling. It's in like something will pop into your head all of a sudden, and you're like, wow, that's interesting. Where did that come from? You know where that came from. You just sat and prayed to your ancestors. So through that message that just popped in your head, that's how they're communicating with you. So I love that you said that, because that way, when those things happen, you can just write them down and then look them over later and like, oh, okay. Because I know I've done that, where I'm sitting and I'm meditating and I'm praying and I'm talking to my ancestors, and I'm like, y'all just not talking. I don't know why y'all not talking, because I need you right now. I don't know what y'all doing, but I've been sending up smoke signals for help. Like, what are you doing? And if I just calm down, because I get dramatic, I'm a Leo. If I just calm down and sit still, have my paper, have my candle lit, and just really allow myself to receive, I'll get something. Something will come through.
It is in those quiet moments that breakthrough happens. All of a sudden it will spring out, whether it's sitting there like you were doing, or you're washing dishes. My favorite is washing dishes. And all of a sudden, while I'm washing it, it's like, it just comes through, because water for me, and like you said, I'm a Cancer, water for me is definitely that thing that helps to calm me and puts me in a state that that I'm in touch more with spiritual realm. So I'm washing dishes, or I'm doing something with water, when bathing, showering, or whatever. Then all of a sudden, something just breaks through, and I'm like, oh, okay, all right. So whatever puts you at that state of surrender, that state of openness, those messages are able to come through, because like I said, coming from the spirit realm to this, the energy vibrations are different. So they do by any means necessary, whether it's flashing different words, you see them repeatedly over and over again, letters, numbers. Recently for me, I've been, when I wake up in the morning, I'll open the book of Psalms, because I have reverends on both sides of the family, and I got the instruction to do that for a little while, because they're starting to communicate through those Psalms. So I just open the book, take a deep breath, open the book, and wherever my eyes land is where I start to read, and I see what the psalm is about, and I write the psalm down. So I record it so that I can go back and see, because I'll get the messages then and there, but also there'll be other revelations later on.
Right.
And yeah. So that's something that they have me on right now. They're like, okay, we're going to communicate right now with you through the song. So every day, because sometimes for me, sometimes I could be a little thick, because I lead sometimes with my with my intellect
Right.
mostly. So I think I know, but they're like, listen, we got some messages for you. So
Yeah.
just, so your messages come in all shapes and forms. And
Yes.
sometimes we receive messages based on our psychic abilities. So some of us hear things, some of us feel things, some of us see things, some of us just pick up smells, all of that.
Yeah.
So yeah, they utilize whatever they need in order to send you a message. Or it could be somebody walking by one day, or you overhear somebody talking about something. It's so interesting.
Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely. It's really, really interesting. So interesting. So one thing that I also love when you clear this up for people who have questions about their ancestors, who are the ancestors that you're speaking to? Because not all ancestors are ones that you want to be praying to. So I'll let you explain that.
Absolutely. And the ancestors that you are calling on when you call them are the ones that are benevolent. They have lived, when they were on earth, they lived a decent life. That don't mean perfect. That doesn't mean they were sweet and kind all the time. That means they weren't evil and trying to destroy people and things and cause harm intentionally. We all live a life. None of us are perfect. And a lot of times we, walk through life and we don't even know who we may be affecting in that way. But I'm talking about live a decent life, contributed to family and community in a positive way. It doesn't have to be a famous way, just that they were living a good life.
Right.
Those are, it's a normal good life. And those are the ancestors that you are praying to. Now, let me make a little bit of a distinction here. There are deceased relatives, which are those who lived and died, and then there are ancestors. Lately, people are grouping ancestors and deceased relatives together, which means the ancestors are your elevated ancestors, your benevolent spirits that are here that come to help you and have been assigned to help you, as well as they just come back to help you, because some of them are your spirit guides as well. But so when you give your deceased relative the title of ancestor, that is automatically saying the benevolent ones. But in order to be clear, when you do your prayers, you say, my elevated and my benevolent ancestors, I call on you. So those are the ones. If you don't know their history and you get a feel, you go by feel too. If you don't know their history, then you kind of leave them on the side. And the other ancestors that are working on your behalf will bring the ones that are supposed to be there helping you as well. So you already have a filtering system in place. But those ancestors who were dark when they were alive did some things that weren't so good and hurt some people. You want to leave them on the side. That's a special case. And there's not many of them, but it's a special case, and that you either learn how to work with them to elevate them, or you have someone who's more experienced do that for you.
Okay. So when you say the dead relatives, so the dead relatives, can they be ancestors, or they're not ancestors?
They are. I'm just saying everybody becomes deceased.
Right.
So they are your ancestors. They are those family members who are deceased.
Gotcha.
But not everybody is an ancestor that is in the position to help you, that you call upon. And it's very few that you that are excluded. It's just those that might have lived that life that wasn't good, and they left the earth very dark. And you don't want to call on them. For instance, I had a couple of family members like that. They were not living a good life when they passed away, and they were, they had done some things. And so it wasn't time for them to be on the ancestor altar. I checked through divination, and I asked after they have been deceased for a while, because understand that life doesn't end. It's just a different form of life when you pass on. So they are in the land of the ancestors, the spirit realm, still continuing on doing things, learning things, living in the way that they do in the spirit realm without these physical bodies. So they're still growing and learning and doing in the ancestral realm. So they don't remain the same when they pass away. So you have to give them time for them to elevate, learn the errors of their ways, and decide to do something differently. And eventually they can become an elevated ancestor that you call upon. Because actually one of the couple that were in my line that I couldn't put on the ancestor altar now is on my ancestor altar. And she is a serious ally because we were very close when she was alive.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
Wow, that's awesome. And I always love it when you teach about that and talk about that, because understanding the distinction, right? And I happened to be in a room on Clubhouse,
Mm-hmm.
and someone was talking about, now this goes into like hoodoo. We're not going to talk about hoodoo right now.
Right.
But this person was talking about how, well, I'll just come out and say it. We as Black people here in America could have some white ancestry that is there by force,
Mm-hmm.
and not, because we
Not by choice.
family. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess for this person's situation, it's like when I guess they weren't being specific on calling on those ancestors, and this particular entity showed up and was not doing well for this person.
Mm-hmm.
So does stuff like
Mm-hmm.
that happen where, if you're not being specific and saying the benevolent, elevated ancestors, that entity could creep in and start doing more harm than good? Or is that too deep for this conversation?
Yes, and spirits all around all the time. You're calling on your ancestors. If you're not being specific, definitely any old ancestor can come. And believe it or not, even the ones that did the evil and the wrong things, they want the light. So now you're doing ancestor reverence that's going to help them. So now they're coming, but they still might not be in the right state of mind. So they're coming, but they want to wreak havoc, or they're doing something that's wrong. You need to definitely deal with that. It can happen, but it's not in my experience, it doesn't happen that often.
Right.
When you're doing ancestor reverence and spirits show up for that, you're already, through your prayers, through your intention, you're calling on the ones that are of light, the ones that are of good intention, because that's what you're stating. And you are already, as a divine being, what you say basically goes. Right. And of course, there are mischievous spirits that do come, right, but it should be not really a problem when dealing with, making sure they stay over there.
Yeah, because when I heard that, I was like, wait, what? That happens? I'm like, hold on, do y'all see me? Like, it's there for sure. So like,
oh yeah, oh yeah.
I'm like, no.
Yeah, no, it's true. Even in my particular practices, I don't acknowledge those ancestors that, were in my history that didn't come by choice. Right. I don't deal with that because I choose not to. I don't deal with any of them because that's such a painful part of the history. And my ancestral mothers that had to go through that are here to help me, that's not something that they need to be engaged with. Now, you can do healing work to heal that, but that's a whole nother thing that you don't have to be engaged with them in order to do that. Right. But I have to say, the person who encountered this, they need to really check what they're doing. They need to check what they're doing.
I was like, wow, I don't know what she did to bring that about, but like, I'm not interested in that at all.
No.
So let me ask you, now that we're talking about the ancestor reverence, so we got, okay, who we're praying to, who we're talking to, we got that established. Now we want to begin the ancestor reverence. What does that look like, or what can that look like? Because I know it's different ways that you can do it. But if you were to walk someone through doing any practice that you would choose, what would you suggest to them to do?
Definitely an ancestor altar. That is the very base in ancestor reverence. So you would designate an area that you would consecrate for your ancestor reverence. You would begin with prayers, consecrating the area, cleansing the area. I tend to like to put my ancestor altar on the floor in the corner. Other people have it on there, like you said, many ways, on top of the table. It all depends on how you're taught or what feels good to you. I like on the floor because of the thought of that is that, the ancestors return to the earth in their physical parts of their body. So you have your ancestor altar close to the ground where they have returned to keep that connection. And then you would put certain things on the altar and to make them comfortable. And that would be things that represent the 4 elements. That would be personal items. That would be photos of them only, not photos with living people. That would also be, water, candles, incense, favorite items, things like that you can put on there. And then you would periodically, I would say, set up a regular schedule where you go to that altar after you've had it set up, and you would sit and you would converse with them. You would pray. You would uplift them in prayer. You would uplift them in song. You can sing, you can dance, you can pray, you can talk like you're talking to like they're right there, like you're talking to mom, you're talking to mama, grandma, dad, you're talking to auntie, sis, whatever it is. It's just a family conversation. Now, what you hear back is in the form of how it's easiest for you to receive the information back from them, or it might be quiet at first. But the thing is, regular communication, regular reverence, flowers, food offerings is another thing. You can prepare food or share the food that you've already prepared with them. You can bowls of fruit, a few pieces of fruit, nothing huge, very, very similar. They like liquor. Now, one thing I want to say about liquor is that alcohol in various traditions that I know, rum or gin is used to give them. But that is not for them to woo, have a good time. There's an energy. Liquor is known to activate, and extract and activate. It gives energy. So you're giving them energy to utilize. It's not for them to sit back and get drunk. Because I've heard of people giving ancestors all kinds of things that to party stuff. And I'm like, if your ancestor, you say, is asking you to go get them this type of substance, then that's not the ancestor you want, because it's not party time like that.
Right.
It's not party time like that. It's you're giving reverence, you're building a connection. So those types of things you don't want to do.
Right. So like I've seen where if someone, a relative was a smoker, like people would put like a cigarette there, or like if your grandfather smoked a pipe, you would put their pipe there. So all these different items people can use and put on their altar for ancestor reverence. So another question that I know has come up for me, I just tell y'all, I have questions. So I just want to know, when you leave the water, the liquor, the food, how long do you leave it there? Is it just for that day? Do you refresh it daily? How do you do that?
There are different schools of thought. In my particular ancestor reverence practices, I refresh the water once a week or whenever I feel the need to. When it comes to the food offerings, it depends. Sometimes I leave it there for a few days. Sometimes it's just overnight. You develop a relationship with them. So but if you want like a formula to do it, I would refresh the water once a week. If you're doing flowers, once a week. I would leave the food, 3 days maybe. But if that really irks your nerves, because some people are, they're clean freaks. Or they have issues with, certain friends that like to come in and partake and don't want that happening. You can leave it out for a few hours and talk to them and say, listen, I can't leave this out so long because we're going to have the little friends coming. So I'm going to let you partake. Then I'm going to clean it up after that. And you all understand. And they do. They work with you,
Right.
So you can leave it out as far as a few hours, or you can leave it out overnight, or you can leave it for a few days. Let's see what else. Yeah, and you can change out your ancestor, refresh your altar, refresh the tobacco if you're leaving out tobacco. Now, one thing I want to say about tobacco, I know people leave the cigarettes. I wouldn't. Both my parents did smoke. They didn't pass away with smoking, but I would not give them that the cigarettes because of the negative thing. But this is my own personal. But tobacco in and of itself is a sacred herb.
Yes.
And it's used in a lot of traditions, especially Native American traditions in the spirit realm. It's actually used to heal. I've been in a pipe ceremony where that smoke, that ritual tobacco smoke healed my knee. So it's very, very sacred herb. So it's a tobacco, cigarettes, cigars. So it also helps to your connection to your spirit guides as well. So, and that's in the Lukumi tradition and the Espiritismo tradition. We use, we have cigars in those ceremonies where we're puffing on cigars to help to connect and to clear your connection between you and the ancestors. So those things work in harmony with ancestor reverence because of what it is as a spiritual science.
Right.
It's not just for enjoyment. They can enjoy it too, but it also has a purpose deeper than enjoyment, Also, you want them happy too.
Yeah. Now, me too, like the cigarettes thing, I thought that was kind of odd because I'm like, well, I don't know if I would do a cigarette. Now I understand pipes because that fresh tobacco and everything else. And I personally love the smell of a pipe. I love it. I love the smell of a cigar, but a cigarette, nah, no bueno, not gonna happen. And I just wouldn't want that, like, especially, maybe they didn't die of lung cancer, but you can bet your bottom dollar that cigarette that they used to smoke didn't help them.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
And it was an addiction. It wasn't a pleasurable thing that they did from time to time.
Yes.
It was an addiction that they did no longer had control of. And that's not what you want to reinforce that in the spirit realm. Not that, they're still addicted, but you don't give them the symbol of something that for me, in my particular belief, something that they were addicted to as well. You want to, we're elevating. We're not keeping people doing the same things that they were doing that held them back while they were alive or damaged them when they were alive.
Right. Yeah, that's why I said that didn't like make any sense to me, but not judging, but I just didn't see the point of that. Now, like you said, tobacco, I know that does in a lot of the like Native American, especially those practices, tobacco is a big part of their healing practices. But there's a difference in that tobacco though. It's a whole different thing than what's packed into a cigarette. Just, being clear.
I actually heard someone from one of the Native people say it. Oh, I think it was in that same pipe ceremony. They said because of the misuse of tobacco as cigarettes is the reason why that disease is rampant the way it is, because the tobacco is not supposed to be used in that way. They do not inhale it in these ceremonies. They puff and nothing goes in the lungs or is inhaled into the lungs. So the misuse is having, this is the effect. Well, that's a whole nother conversation for another day, because that's herbal spirit realm conversation.
Yeah, because I just had something pop into my head, but that's we'll talk about that later. We'll talk about that later. So, excuse me. So I love that, you know, we know who we're praying to. We know what we can do to show them reverence. Another way that I love also is being in nature and reverencing, you know, the first ancestor, which would be spirit, and then of course Mother Earth. So what about those of us who love to be outside and do some kind of reverence outside? Is there a particular thing that you recommend that people do when they want to go and just reconnect, have that ultimate reconnection by going outside?
Yes, indeed. Nature, yeah, is the place for connection with your ancestors and all your ancestors, and like you said, the ancestors of the land, the ancestors of the spirit, the vegetable and mineral kingdom. They're all living beings that are connected to us, and all the spirits are connected. They work in harmony with each other. They work in tandem with each other. So being out in nature, you can definitely connect with your ancestors. You know, you can sit out, put your feet on the earth, sit outside, meditate, pray, and call on them. That's actually one of the best places to connect with your ancestors. In my past, I haven't recently been at some serious drumming ceremonies calling on the ancestors. So we're out on barefoot on the grass with the drums, calling the ancestors, and they are coming. And they don't only just come in their spirit bodies, they actually come with the spiritual mediums. So they will come through the spiritual mediums and give messages and things like that. And it's something to experience and behold. So nature definitely is the best place. That's who we are. We're nature. So
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yay. Well, I gotta say, I have, of course, enjoyed this conversation so much. We could go on forever and ever and talk about this stuff. But I just appreciate you taking time out of your day and coming and talking about ancestral reverence in the way that only you can. Mignon is the person, like, I will ask her questions and I'll be like, I know she about sick of me, but I gotta ask this question because especially if I hear something or read something and I'm like, that don't sound right. And then I'll go and I'll check with her and she's like, well, no, they need to da 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 da. So I'm gonna go ahead and say this. She has her book for Ancestral Reverence that I would say get that book because it has a lot of great tips and information in there, especially if you're just getting started. It's a great tool to use to be able to kind of give you some guidance, just to give you a place to start in your journey. So before we close out, Mignon, did you have anything else that you wanted to share regarding this particular topic?
Yes. I just want to share that, I've been open to and practicing ancestral reverence as a part of my spiritual life for a long, long time. And I have to say, it is the most powerful and the most elevating experience that I have had. If I've never done anything else further in my spiritual walk, connecting with my ancestors has been one of the most wonderful and fulfilling and beneficial things that I have ever done. So I just want to share that, now not all of us are meant to go off into all these different, spiritual traditions and walks, but we all have ancestors that are waiting for us, helping us already, but also waiting for that closer connection and acknowledgement. And that can be their allies like nobody else. And they can do things like no other spiritual beings can do for you. So I just wanted to share that, that's open to everyone.
Yes, thank you. Thank you for making that point. I really appreciate that because we have to make sure that people understand that you don't have to go and get more letters behind your name or You don't have to, you know, be initiated into a particular tradition or anything like that. You can, if that's what calls to you. But if you're just getting started, start with the ancestors. Start with what you know you already have access to, and that is them. So thank you for bringing that point. Just yes. So Mignon, if somebody wants to contact you or reach you, follow you, how can they be part of your world, girl?
Well, I'll give my email that you can reach me at. It's the.rev. That's REV as in Victor. Not the rev dot the rev dot Mignon MIGNON at gmail.com. The rev dot Mignon at gmail.com. So when you edit, you know. You get the right clip.
Right.
And I can be found also on Clubhouse. I have a room, a club called Sacred Mysteries, and I also have a website called www.sacredmysteries.org, and you can find out all about me and my services and what I've got going on. And one more thing, that's a great resource that I have is my YouTube channel called Sacred Mysteries.
Yes.
Yes, Sacred Mysteries Worldwide. And the videos there, the videos of information and the videos for meditation. I have a great Ancestor Reverence connection video that has gotten so much great feedback. It's helped a lot of people connect with their ancestors. So you can go to the channel and check that out too.
Yes. Please go to that channel. That completely slipped my mind because it's not too often that I don't go and visit her channel just to, like, even if she's like the Ancestor Reverence, the Ancestor meditation, the ones that she has for the various Orisha, and just all this information that's on there. It's just, it's so much and it's so beautiful and I love it. So yes, go to her YouTube channel, and all of Mignon's information is going to be in the description box. So hold your mule. It's all good. I got you. Just go in the description box and you can see her contact information, her social media, her website, her YouTube, all of that. I'm going to hook y'all up so that you can stay in contact with this gorgeous goddess sister of mine. All right.
Thank you, love.
You're welcome. Thank you. Thank you so much. I always love it when you grace us with your presence here at the Sacred Pathway Academy. I just love it.
Thank you. I love coming to your academy as well. I'm always joyful whenever you invite me on. So it's always a pleasure.
Yeah, the pleasure is all mine. So thank you everyone for tuning in. Thank you for listening. Leave comments, give us some likes, give us some subscribes, give us some all that so that we can stay afloat and keep doing what we're doing. So until next time, I will see you all in the next episode. Bye for now.